In the early morning hours of May 21, 2021, the Fort Worth Police Department received a call reporting gunfire near the 1200 block of East Presidio Street. Officers arrived minutes later to find a man lying unresponsive on the ground beside a parked vehicle. The victim had suffered multiple gunshot wounds. Paramedics attempted life-saving measures, but he was pronounced dead at the scene. The man was identified as two-year-old Xavier Jamal Rollins, a Fort Worth resident, son, and father, whose death would spark a lengthy investigation that continued for several years before finally being solved. In the hours following the shooting, detectives secured the scene and began collecting evidence. The area showed no signs of forced entry to nearby vehicles or homes. Spent shell casings were located around the vehicle where Xavier had been found. The casings were photographed, marked, and collected for ballistic comparison. Investigators canvassed the neighborhood, knocking on doors, searching for witnesses, and reviewing security cameras pointed toward the street. Several cameras captured audio of the gunshots, but not the shooting itself. Detectives learned that Xavier had arrived in the neighborhood shortly before the shooting. He was known to visit friends in the area. Witnesses reported hearing a short verbal exchange followed by rapid gunfire. One resident saw a dark-colored vehicle speed away immediately after the shots were heard. No one saw the shooter clearly, and the vehicle description was too general to narrow down. The medical examiner's report confirmed Xavier had been shot multiple times at close range. There were no defensive wounds, suggesting he did not have time to react before the attack. Toxicology tests showed nothing that contributed to his death. The cause was determined to be homicide by firearm. Investigators examined Xavier's personal life to determine whether he had any ongoing conflicts or threats. Friends and family described him as outgoing, loyal, and focused on his young child. He had been working steadily and was trying to build a stable future. Detectives reviewed his recent phone records, messages, and social media activity. Nothing suggested that he had been engaged in criminal activity or disputes that would lead to a targeted killing. Ballistics analysis was conducted on the shell casings recovered from the scene. The casings were entered into NIBIN, the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network. The system returned a lead connecting the casings to a firearm used in a previous shooting in Tarrant County, but the earlier case also had no suspect identified. The firearm had not been recovered in either incident. With no immediate suspect, the case stalled. In the months that followed, detectives reviewed the case multiple times. They re-interviewed witnesses, examined tips, and monitored developments in related investigations. Despite these efforts, the case reached a standstill. The pandemic slowed certain forensic processes, and new major crimes in the area placed additional pressure on investigative resources. Still, the department kept Xavier's case active, aware that solving firearm-related homicides often required time and new forensic connections. In 2023, investigators received a tip that a man named Christopher Allen Chapman had been talking about a shooting that matched the circumstances of Xavier's death. Detectives interviewed the source, who reported that Chapman had made comments implying involvement in a homicide near East Presidio Street. While the tip was significant, it was not enough to establish probable cause. Detectives began reviewing Chapman's criminal record, vehicle history, known associates, and location data from the time period surrounding the homicide. Investigators soon discovered that Chapman had previously lived not far from the area where Xavier was killed. Phone records indicated that Chapman's device had pinged in the vicinity of the crime scene during the general time frame of the shooting. Detectives requested a deeper analysis of his movements, comparing them with the ballistic and witness data already in the file. As investigators built their case, new information emerged. A second witness came forward, claiming Chapman had admitted involvement in the shooting during a private conversation. The witness reported that Chapman had said the situation got out of hand and that he had fled before anyone could identify him. The witness's statement, combined with the earlier tip, location data, and Chapman's known access to firearms, gave investigators new momentum. Detectives conducted additional interviews with Chapman's associates, many of whom confirmed he regularly carried a firearm similar to the one used in the homicide. When shown photos of the type of casings collected at the scene, several acquaintances said Chapman had owned a weapon that matched that caliber. Detectives also learned that Chapman had abruptly changed residences in the weeks following the shooting. With the accumulated evidence, detectives presented the case to the Tarrant County District Attorney's Office. Prosecutors reviewed the ballistic information, witness statements, cell phone data, and Chapman's historical movements. After evaluating the available evidence, prosecutors determined there was probable cause to obtain an arrest warrant. On September 6, 2023, more than 2 years after Xavier's death, members of the U.S. Marshals North Texas Fugitive Task Force located Chapman at a residence in Fort Worth. He was taken into custody without incident. Chapman was charged with murder and booked into the Tarrant County Jail. Following his arrest, detectives interviewed Chapman. He denied involvement in the shooting, but could not provide a consistent account of his whereabouts at the time of Xavier's death. The inconsistencies in his statements were added to the case file. The Fort Worth Police Department publicly announced the arrest, crediting the persistence of homicide detectives, forensic specialists, and cooperating witnesses. They emphasized that the case had remained a priority and that advances in digital analysis had played a significant role in solving the homicide. Xavier's family was notified of the arrest. For more than 2 years, they had sought answers regarding his death. They attended each meeting with detectives and continued to ask for public assistance during the long investigation. The confirmation that a suspect had been arrested provided the family with long-awaited information and the beginning of closure. In statements shared publicly, relatives thanked the investigators for their perseverance and the community for supporting the case. With the arrest complete, the case proceeded into the prosecution phase. Evidence collected over 2 years, including ballistic reports, witness testimony, and digital tracking information, was organized for court presentation. Prosecutors prepared to show that Chapman was responsible for Xavier's death and had fled the scene immediately afterward. The homicide of Xavier Jamal Rollins, unsolved for more than 2 years, was finally resolved through forensic evidence, persistent investigation, and the willingness of community members to come forward with information. While the criminal justice process continues, the arrest marks a critical step in acknowledging the life lost and the violent act that ended it. Xavier's case, once stalled with no leads and no suspects, now stands as an example of how long-term investigation, digital forensics, and community cooperation can ultimately bring a homicide investigation to its conclusion. The identity of the shooter is no longer unknown. The victim is no longer without justice. And the case that opened on an early morning in May 2021 now moves forward with the truth that investigators spent years assembling piece by piece. On the evening of April 15, 1967, 6-year-old Roy Dwayne Ben left his home in Rochester, Minnesota, planning to drive to a nearby town. He was seen shortly before he left, and nothing about his behavior suggested distress or danger. Roy owned a light-colored 1960 Chevrolet Biscayne, a car well known to friends and family. When he did not return home that night, his family initially believed he might have stayed elsewhere or changed his plans. But as hours turned into days, with no sign of him, it became clear that something was wrong. Roy Ben was born in 1941 and raised in southern Minnesota. He worked locally, stayed close to family, and was described as dependable and consistent. At the time of his disappearance, he was living an ordinary daily routine in Rochester. He had no known conflicts with anyone, no criminal history, and no warning signs that he might leave voluntarily. His sudden disappearance left both authorities and relatives without answers. After Roy failed to return home, his family filed a missing person report with the Rochester Police Department. Officers began a standard investigation. They checked local hospitals, questioned co-workers, and searched the routes Roy commonly traveled. His car was not found along any roadways, and no witnesses reported seeing him after he left home. The investigation expanded to surrounding counties, but the search produced no leads. His bank accounts remained untouched, and there were no phone calls or letters indicating that he had left willingly. Multiple agencies joined the search. The Olmsted County Sheriff's Office assisted with rural checks and waterway scans. Law enforcement searched ditches, bridges, and isolated roads, focusing on areas where a vehicle could have gone off the roadway due to poor visibility or sharp curves. Nothing was found. As months passed, the case grew cold. Without a vehicle, a scene, or a witness, investigators had no direction to pursue. In the years that followed, Roy Ben's file remained open. His name was entered into state missing person databases, and his description was maintained in investigative bulletins. His family never stopped asking for updates. They believed Roy had not simply chosen to leave. The absence of information suggested that he had suffered an accident or a sudden event that left him unable to contact anyone. Still, no evidence surfaced. Through the 1,970 seconds and 1,980 seconds, the case remained unsolved. Occasional tips were checked, including reports of abandoned vehicles and unidentified remains across Minnesota, but none were connected to Roy. Officers revisited the file every few years, rechecking roadside areas with updated maps and aerial surveys, particularly near bodies of water. Each review ended the same: no confirmation, no vehicle, no sign of Roy. The case remained dormant until technological advancements changed the tools available to investigators. In the early 2000s, nationwide interest in long-term missing person cases grew. Agencies began digitizing old files and entering information into national systems, such as NamUs. Roy Ben's case was updated and re-entered into national missing person records, so law enforcement around the country could match unidentified remains to older cases. Still, the breakthrough would not come from traditional investigative work, but from developments in underwater exploration. In the 2010 seconds and 2020 seconds, volunteer groups and private organizations began using advanced sonar equipment to search lakes and rivers for missing vehicles. These teams often focused on decades-old cases where cars had likely gone unseen beneath deep or murky water. Minnesota, with its many lakes and rivers, became a key location for such searches. In 2024, a specialized sonar search team working in cooperation with law enforcement conducted scans of a lake area in rural Olmsted County. The location was not far from one of the possible routes Roy Ben could have taken the night he disappeared. Using high-resolution side-scan sonar equipment, searchers detected a submerged vehicle approximately 30 to 40 feet from shore. The outline and size matched a sedan from the mid-20th century. The area had been searched decades earlier using older methods, but the deep water and sediment had made visual inspection nearly impossible at the time. Divers entered the water to confirm the find. Beneath layers of silt, they located a heavily deteriorated vehicle. After carefully clearing away sediment, they confirmed the make and model, a 1960 Chevrolet Biscayne. The vehicle identification number plate was still readable. Investigators contacted the Minnesota Department of Public Safety to compare the VIN to historical records. The match was confirmed. The vehicle belonged to Roy Dwayne Ben, missing since 1967. Inside the car, divers found skeletal remains. Due to the condition of the vehicle and the depth at which it had rested for decades, the remains were significantly decomposed, but enough biological material was preserved for examination. The vehicle was lifted from the lake using specialized recovery equipment, and the remains were transported to the medical examiner's office for forensic analysis. The medical examiner conducted a full examination and concluded that the remains were human and consistent with an adult male. Dental comparisons were conducted using historical records provided by Roy's family. After comparing dental characteristics with those preserved in the remains, the identity was confirmed. The person inside the submerged vehicle was Roy Dwayne Ben. The discovery brought an answer to a case that had remained open for more than 57 years. Investigators reviewed the condition of the vehicle and the surrounding terrain. The angle at which the car entered the water, combined with the lack of skid marks or evidence of braking, suggested an accidental event. The road near the lake had steep embankments and limited guardrails in the 1,960 seconds. Nighttime travel could easily result in a vehicle veering off the road, especially in poor visibility. No evidence of foul play was found inside or around the vehicle. The official conclusion was that Roy Ben likely lost control of his vehicle, went off the road, and entered the water where the car sank. Due to the depth and murky conditions, the vehicle was not visible from the surface. Search teams in 1967 lacked the sonar and underwater technology available today, making it unlikely the car could have been located at that time. The recovery of Roy Ben's vehicle provided long-awaited closure for his surviving relatives. For more than 5 decades, they had lived without knowing what happened on the night he disappeared. With the confirmation, law enforcement formally closed the missing person case and updated national databases with the resolved status. The case stands as an example of how advancements in search technology and the persistence of investigators and volunteer sonar teams can solve cold cases once thought impossible to resolve. The discovery of the vehicle not only provided answers, but also highlighted the importance of re-examining older cases using methods not available at the time of the original investigation. After 57 years, the mystery of what happened to Roy Dwayne Ben was finally resolved. His identity, once lost beneath the water, was restored. His story, long marked by uncertainty, now has a definitive conclusion.